Hello everyone and welcome back to another Facebook Friday, but we're actually here on Wednesday. That's right, we are doing an early edition of our weekly Facebook Friday segment. Today is a start of the end, I guess, of daylight savings. And so we wanted to talk a little bit about what goes on with your body when daylight savings changes and it starts to get cold outside, because there's a variety of different things that happen. And so we want to be prepared, because we were talking earlier last week about the fable of the ant and the grasshopper, and not everyone had heard the fable of the ant and the grasshopper, so I wanted to share a little bit about that. And it was the fact that there's two of these animals and they're out and about through summertime, and the ant is busily working away. We know ants are hard working, and he's out collecting food and getting prepared for the winter, while the grasshopper is off playing and dancing and singing. And sure enough, there is an early winter and it gets cold, and the grasshopper is unprepared and unfortunately meets his early demise, whereas the ant is happy and healthy and able to make it through the winter. So we want to prepare all of our patients to be ready for the end of the summer, the fall, and into winter. So Dr. Botros, tell us a little bit about what happens to your body come winter time.
Well, I can definitely tell you that once the weather starts getting colder, the daylight becomes less frequent and it gets darker sooner and earlier. Things start to change, not just with our physiology, but our psychology as well. So we see our energy levels can decline, we feel a bit cold, rigid, things are a bit dark and gray out there, so we don't want to get out there, we don't want to exercise and move around because it just doesn't feel so good to do that. Also, another common thing is we tend to be a bit more hydrated because we're not that hot, so we feel like we might not need water as much as we do in the summer. And so if we're paying attention to all these things that can change with seasons, especially as we start approaching winter, we know that, for example, there's a condition called seasonal affective depression, essentially, where you get depressed based on winter time. So we want to avoid that, because we do see that with increased depression, we have more cases of low back pain and headaches and low energies and all that stuff, poor sleep. So we want to avoid that altogether here.
We talked a lot about, the three major stresses impacting your body, whether it's physical stress, chemical stress, or emotional stress. And of course, emotional stress comes very tightly with the seasonal affective disorder or seasonal affective depression. So there's a couple different things that we can do to help out in preventing that. Once again, sunlight is a big factor in that, but sunlight produces a certain chemical in your body. And what is that chemical?
That is the sunshine chemical, which is known as vitamin D. Now, vitamin D is something that you would create in your own body when you're exposed to the sunlight, and you want to make sure you get a good form. So not all vitamin Ds are the same.
That's exactly right. So we want to make sure that we're taking really healthy vitamin D supplements. Now, we should be taking these a lot of times just to begin with. However, it's even more essential come winter time. Now, you mentioned another thing about hydration. Oddly enough, come winter time, the water in the air is actually less. And so, once again, it becomes really important for us to want to drink more water, like Dr. Botros said, and want to stay more hydrated. So it becomes very more important in the winter time, as it gets colder, to make sure you're consuming large quantities of waters. Once again, you don't necessarily feel like you're as dehydrated, but you do get dehydrated quickly. When patients go out and they start doing things like shoveling, once again, if they're dehydrated, this is a really big recipe for getting injured. And a lot of times you're out there and you're actually sweating, but you don't necessarily feel like you're sweating because it's cold or because you have so many layers on, but really your body is then depleting itself of even more water, once again, making yourself far more likely to become injured. One other interesting thing that happens when it starts to get cold outside is that if our body isn't managing heat internally properly, once again, it can start to become injured or take steps to try to get warmer. And one of the things that your body does when it gets warmer is it starts to shiver, and you start getting into an enclosed posture. And this is something very difficult to mentally stop yourself from doing. It's something that your body does automatically. What happens when we start to get into this posture?
So what happens is we tend to contract those muscles that put us more towards that fetal position, and gets us curled in to keep that core temperature at a normal level. And so when we find ourselves ready, and we've mentioned this in many videos before, with the texting, with the studying, with the sitting, with the computer work, and the list goes on and on and on, where we're constantly in this position anyways, now we have this reflexive trigger mechanism happening where those muscles are shaking and tightening up, further reinforcing that could be a real problem, not just for your spine, but in the vertebrae, but for your muscles and your joints as well.
Absolutely. So you're just forcing your body to be even in worse posture for longer periods of time. You get into that car, it's so cold, you're shivered up, you're tight. Any of that extra stress that's already in there is going to become amplified. So in these circumstances, these three areas, what can we do to help them out? Once again, first thing, as far as being dehydrated, Dr. Botros, real easy, what can you do?
Drink more water.
Simple.
Very simple.
Very simple. As far as missing out sunlight, what can we do?
Take a vitamin D supplement, vitamin D3 to be ideal. And if you have any hesitation, get your vitamin D levels checked. But it is kind of interesting, in case you guys don't know, but about 3/4 of people living in the northern hemisphere, which is us, are deficient in vitamin D3. So odds are we're going to be running pretty low here.
We need to make sure that we're on that. Absolutely. Third thing, once again, if our posture is going to get worse, what is something that we can do to help prevent that going into the wintertime?
Great thing you can do. Come on by. Let's get you checked out and get you adjusted.
Absolutely. Super easy to do. Once again, let us see what's working, let us see what isn't, and we'll correct some of those deficiencies to make sure that wintertime is healthy, happy, and you're able to enjoy it as much as you want. Once again, real easy. That's for us to this week on our Facebook Wednesday or Friday. Once again, I'm Dr. Alan Van Scoyk, and I'm joined with Dr. Botros here at the company in Glendale. If you do want any help with any of these, once again, let us know. Contact us here through our website or through our phone number, and we'll be happy to help you. Otherwise, we'll talk to you next week on our normally timed Facebook Friday.